Well, thank you, Jen, for that introduction. Jen is my senior operations manager. She does a great job. She keeps all three of us that are presenting today in line and keeps things moving in the right direction. So thank you, Jen.
Welcome.
We have on this call today Greg Meehan. Greg and I have gotten to know each other very well. He serves our clients at no cost to them. We've totally underwritten the cost of Greg's services. So if you need anything related to HR, hiring, firing, performance improvement plans, employee handbooks, Greg is your guy. As a client of McMichael Insurance, again, his services are available at no cost. Well, I should say at our cost, but Greg does it. Greg does a great job. Joe Marquette is also with us. He's with Excelis, Excelis Technology Group. They also serve our clients and do a fabulous job. My spiel on technology and particularly on cyber is insurance is a great last line of defense. You never want insurance to be your first line of defense. You always need a good technology firm and a good attorney. So these guys on the call are invaluable to each of our operations and trying to protect our businesses. This is going to be a quick webinar. Three presenters only have 15 minutes. We did leave some time for Q&A at the end. So as you think of questions, go ahead and post them in the queue. Let Jen know, and she will make sure your questions get attention. But this is just simply designed to whet your appetite, to listen to the topics, to draw you in for the further conversation with either myself or Greg or Joe. So just keep that in mind. This is going to be going at a breakneck pace. So with that said, I believe Jen is our first presenter, Joe.
Yes, he is.
All right, Joe Marquette, Chief Executive Officer of Excelis Technology Group. Thank you, Joe.
Gerald, thank you. That was a nice intro. Thank you for having us here today. It's kind of it's interesting blend, I would say, between technology and insurance and legal. There's all the things that can either interest you or put you to sleep pretty quickly. So I will try to do something a little bit differently and give you guys some insights. Really, what I wanted to focus on today was AI in cybersecurity and give our audience an idea of how some of this emerging technology is influencing cyber activity, cyber criminal activity, and as well as some of the defensive activities that businesses and various organizations are using to expand their defensive posture and make sure that they are equally prepared for what's happening in the world today. I don't think anyone's surprised by the fact that AI is having a profound impact on many parts of our day-to-day lives. But certainly within the business context, we're seeing it more and more really have an impact on what we're doing. And, the slide that's up here now just talks a little bit about some of the things that are happening. It was just last year that, I think the preponderance of things like ChatGPT and the use of those tools became more and more prevalent. And almost immediately we began to see the impact of that in a nefarious way where really we're talking about the ability to begin using these technologies to take what was quite simply a very supportive effort. Bots is a great example. We've all been able to get technical support or log into a particular website and quote unquote speak with a bot. And ultimately, those bots have been transformed into more of an using AI, and now criminals are figuring out how to use that same AI to turn the bots into bad guys, if you will. So it's all happening very quickly, and I thought that it would be useful for us all to have an understanding of really where the impact is going to be seen. So if just go ahead and move forward if you could, Jen. So first, I thought it would be important to make sure we're on the same page about really when I speak of AI. I mean, listen, I'll be the first to admit it's a huge topic, and there's a lot of details that we could cover. But I'm going to try and give everybody just a high level understanding, or at least a perspective of where we think this is coming from. There's there's two ways to look at this. There's the average person AI, how people are using AI, and then there's the business utilization of AI. And when this first point up here is really talking about the technology itself and cognitive growth and learning. And I think the term cognitive, depending upon what you read, might have a different or perhaps bad implications. People are thinking that the machine is thinking. By cognitive, I don't mean that it's independent thought, but really it's about continuous growth and continuous learning and continuous understanding. It's really about understanding the ability to continuously gather more and more information and learn from it and offer responses, information, ideas back to businesses and individuals based on that continuous process. But the interesting thing is that it's not a static effort, right? So the next point really would just be about how that's the AI technologies that we're seeing today. The original formats, the machines, the neural networks, they were on a narrow framework for what the type of data that they could learn from. Today, we are seeing that AI technologies being able to expand into far greater structured as well as unstructured types of data sources. And language, for example, is an unstructured data source. Say Excel spreadsheets might be a structured data source, but it's a scary and really impressive sort of ability to not only continuously learn, but now we are developing the ability to learn from many different types of data sources, and we are really moving into a third frontier where it's not contained. We have the ability to learn. The AI has the ability to learn from not only static information in one location, but also from many locations from around the world, from very different data sets and websites and social media sites. And there's a recent story about ChatGPT literally downloading billions of hours, millions, billions, I'm not sure which hours of information from YouTube, and just it's ingesting all that knowledge information as a data set and continuing to learn from it. And the next thing that's really evolving is the ability to offer truly tailored recommendations from all this AI technology. So you get all this ability to learn and grow on a continuous basis. We're able to look at all different types of data now. We're able to aggregate from so many different sources, and now we're getting very specific tailored information. And this is both business, both personal. If anyone's been using, if people like to play the fantasy football leagues, you know that you're getting very tailored AI-based information delivered to you on a regular basis. So when we talk about AI, that's sort of the concepts that I want to make sure that we're on the same page about. We're not getting technical. We're not going to go to neural networks. We're not going to go to learning models. There's a whole bunch of things there, but really fundamentally, this is where we're at from a technology perspective. When you look at moving on to the next slide, Jen. We talk a little bit about large language models, and I just wanted to point this out because this is the thing that we hear most about, right? So large language models are, you hear of ChatGPT. There's multiple different types of large language models, but ultimately what they're able to do is, I'll just say, like, if you could hit a couple more slides, Jen, or points, Jen, please. The idea is that there is a predictive model that works within AI, an engine, if you will, a neural network, if you will, that actually allows for the ability to do a predictive mechanism that predicts the next thing that people want to hear. That's really when you're working with LLM models. They are unstructured data. They're really all about being able to predict information that you want to see back. And it's the thing that people know most about, and it's about and today we have the ability to, these large language models are ingesting just unbelievable amounts of data, most of it for good, some of it for not. And when we talk about cybersecurity, there's a lot of this LLM type technologies that are being used for quite bad intent, in the world today. So moving on. The idea of this is really to kind of look at this from two perspectives. One is how is AI impacting both the criminal cyber tactics as well as the and then defensive, criminal or offensive cyber tactics. But looking at really where we are from the criminal side of things, probably the thing that is happening most often is really around using AI to generate some really complex, some really targeted phishing campaigns that are quite effective. If any of you out there have seen, obviously many of us have had email for a long time. We've gotten these emails, inbound that are just almost comical in how foolish and inaccurate and easily identifiable they are for being a phishing attack, being maybe a malware attempt to download malware. But going forward, the complexities of these LLMs, the complexities and capacity of the AI models are really creating some unbelievably effective tools that we're seeing coming through what today are existing defensive technologies, firewalls, spam filters, etc. Things that were like could never be caught before coming right on through. So they're getting very good at it. They're also getting very good at using AI to scan networks and identify where vulnerabilities might be across, the external, threat surface area of, as if you will, of your network. So really, we're talking about not even having to do much. It can just go out there and start attacking, scanning IP addresses, looking for vulnerabilities with almost no effort whatsoever. The malware creation itself is really a fascinating thing. Malware has been an industry in and of itself, especially globally, for a long time, where there are a lot of bad guys that were creating malware pretty effectively and pretty easily. But the whole industry has exploded, if you will, where now they can create this code that's easily injected, easily downloadable, and it can infect your networks at remarkable speeds. And then the last thing really they're using it to is to try and use that predictive technology to lean in on exactly how you typically use your computers and start predicting your password patterns and behaviors and actually being able to act on your behalf, using these AI tools. It's a lot, of different types of attacks, but it's just getting easier and easier for the criminals to do it. But you'd like to think that we're being safe, that we're being predicted, but we're not, because the tools that are out there are supposed to be also, people were being told, keeping us from us. So, for example, I talked about the ability to write some of these phishing emails. The tools are supposed to stop, right? So it says, in this example, give me a phishing email for Harvard students about summer updates, and the tool is designed to say, no, we won't do it, but we can. But the criminals and even some of the not so criminals are quickly figuring out there's another way to do this. Because if you actually went through and said, all right, just let's make this informative. Let's make this a hypothetical. Let's tell a narrative. Let's tell a story. The tools are very quick to quickly get away from that. So while we think that the tools are being built, and they are intending to be built to not create, easily create criminal activity or support criminal activity, there certainly are ways to quickly get around it and create and allow those individuals or organizations to leverage these AI and technologies to further their cyber crimes. So what I wanted to kind of point out next is really more about what from a defensive perspective, how are we using AI today to try and get in front of all this? The first thing is really around automated root cause analysis, as we call it. I mean, one of the hardest things to do in the moment of a cybercrime is figure out exactly what's really happening and why. And it requires that second point there, which is a comprehensive amount of data ingestion, from a defensive technology perspective, just trying to connect the dots, right? So whether that's from computers, networks, email, Microsoft in the cloud, Google, there's all these data sources that now we can quickly identify what exactly is happening and identify the anomaly. So that allows us to create sort of a detect and respond mean time to detection and mean time to response. So the moment that something happens and the time that it takes for us to respond, is also getting very, very much closer, right? So aggregate all the data, identify the breach point, and then quickly identify what the remediation and response techniques need to be. AI is allowing us to be much more effective in that. And then also really allowing us to lean in and respond quickly and build automated responses. So it's not just manual things. You can actually leverage AI to create the automated responses. So from Excelis's perspective, I will tell you that there's a handful of things that we're seeing very specifically from a cyber crime standpoint. The first thing is, we're seeing just a preponderance of AI generated code that's just turning just about anybody into cyber criminals. We've seen this before. It's happening even further. The source of these issues are happening first, faster and faster. AI versus AI, the criminals are speeding up their efforts, and the defensive companies are speeding up their efforts. The technologies, the companies that we're counting on to build the tools to defend our networks, to defend our data, are getting better and better at it, but it's an arms race, right? So it's just a matter of, things are moving very quickly. Deep fakes are becoming more and more common, particularly voice and video. Video is more and more, but not fully there yet. But the voice deep fakes are really creating havoc in some of our financial institutions, and they're having to come up with ways to get around that. And then the last thing is really we're seeing a lot of people that are inadvertently, I'm assuming, we believe, loading confidential information that they don't want to be loading into places that they don't want to have it, whether that's in ChatGPT or other models, which does create opportunities for data breaches and loss of information. So it's evolving, and it's evolving quickly, but these are some of the areas that we're really seeing the problems reveal themselves first. So the last thing I'll just point through is what do you need to know? The first thing is, and it's not even on here, I'll just say it out, at a high level, do not get fooled into what I call an inertia defensive. The inertia defensive is, I saw this thing once, and that I know that doesn't apply to me. The AI technologies are evolving so quickly, and the criminals are adopting tools so rapidly that the thing that didn't work last week or last month or yesterday very well may work tomorrow. So just assume you're going to have to evolve and get quick at it. Implement a time-based defensive strategy. Assume that the time it takes to identify and solve your attack or a breach is minutes, not days. It used to be days, weeks, it used to be months sometimes between a breach and actually you were able to identify it because the time to attack took so long. Do not assume it. Assume that the AI is taking this down to is to minutes from the moment it happens and the time that actually they can start to exfiltrate data out of your environment. Create a culture awareness. Make sure everybody knows these issues. Make sure you have an incident response plan in place and practice it. Do tabletop exercises, talk yourself through, and don't go it alone. This is not a self-serving exercise or a mention. There are a lot of people out there that can help you navigate these waters. Several of them are on this call. Make sure you speak to them and ask the questions about how do we make sure we're doing the right things. I know I'm probably a little bit, I hope I'm not too long on time, but a lot of ground to cover. Excelis has been around a long time. Don't want to talk too much about us. We're really here about, supporting the overall goal here, but ultimately just know that technology and security and the needs for increased defensive postures is increasing exponentially, and largely that has to do with AI today. So that's about all I wanted to talk about, and hopefully if anybody has any questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Joe. We're going to go ahead and turn it over to Greg.
Hey, Joe, thank you. What was great about Joe's presentation is talking about one aspect of cybersecurity, which is, of course, the battlefront between systems, AI, intelligence, and information. And so what I'm going to talk about is what the law does and how it impacts you as an employer. And it's the most devastating aspect of the law that no one thinks about or gets concerned about until it hits them. And it's always not me, it's somebody else until you happen to be the someone else. And so this first slide, these are the ideas and things that are in my PowerPoint. I would ask that when you get a chance, go through the PowerPoint in detail. I put a lot of information in there to be more like a book that you could get many answers to the questions that you need, so that you're able to then maybe ask some more questions, more answers, and engage in the process. But what I'm going to talk about briefly is the applicable statutes, what data breach is like, and the protections of pre-breach and post-breach, and how insurance briefly plays a role. So if we could go to slide 2 for a moment real quick. So when we look at slide 2, we've got Homeland Security and FBI are the major sources of cybersecurity in the United States. Slide 5, please. And what cybersecurity is, of course, it's cyber-enabled crime. There's many traditional crimes have taken a new turn, as we talked a little bit about earlier in terms of AI. But we see these crimes against children, financial crimes, and even terrorism. 911 was one of a cyber terrorist crime, which resulted in many different statutes, including the Patriot Act that have come out. We also see that some of the cybercrime in terms of systems and computers and engagement of companies can be hacking, can be distributed denials of service where you're not able to access your system. Next slide, please. Malicious hacking, there's a federal statute that brings in the federal law, and for organizations handling sensitive data, legal liability for cybersecurity comes in piecemeal manner. And this is where I want to focus on for you. You've got data on your employees, you've got data on your employees' families, you've got data on your clients, vendors, and customers. And what my focus on is going to be basically on what that liability impacts you as the employer and you as the employee who's been harmed, and your children and those other types of things. So slide 6 will go real quick, but slide 6 through 13, if you just go to 6 for a moment.
Sorry, Greg, I thought we were on 6.
All right, 7, if we could for a moment. So, and then go 8 for a moment. That's the HIPAA Information Privacy Act, and this outlines what the HIPAA guidelines are. Next one, please. This one's the Graham-Leach-Billy Act, and deals with financial institutions and what applies. Both the Federal Trade Commission, the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protections, the Security and Exchange Commissions, and the Commodity Futures of Trading Commissions. All of these are tasked with regard to finance and banking from cyber crimes. Next one, please. Next one. Student education records. Many of you may not have thought about it, but there's a statute called FERPA that talks about how student records, children, family records are to be housed by educational institutions, which are at risk, of course, from cyber crimes in terms of social security numbers and those kinds of things. And schools become responsible for that material. Next one, please. And then if you could go down to 13 for a moment. And then we talked a little bit about Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Now, this is, again, another federal act that deals with cybersecurity and stealing of information. You should also know, and I'll use Illinois as one example, every state in the nation has a cybercrime statute that is different than the federal statute, but they work in concert with each other. And that's why in an earlier comment I made to you, it's more of a piecemeal. There is no, at this point in time, one ombudsman or one complete program that says this is our cyber policy, procedures, and statutes. So we have to go to the federal and then the individual state. But just for an example, I'll use Illinois for a moment. Illinois has a criminal statute and a civil statute that deals with tampering, aggravated computer tampering, and of course, computer fraud, meaning using a computer to engage in financial transactions and occurrences. And all of those are what impact companies and impact employees' financial ability liabilities. What we see is companies' information stolen, that results in employees' information stolen, that results in the employees' banking account information, Social Security, 401ks, property stolen. Then we see property information being revealed and quick claim deeds being created and transferred of your property to others. And all of this process falls on the shoulders of the employer for not having proper cybersecurity systems in place. And that liability flows all the way back up to the company for engaging in the process. And that's why it's important for two things to occur. One, to have a cybersecurity system, and two, to have an alert system that will allow you to immediately be notified when something happens. If we could go to slide 14 for a moment. One
Is that
more?
this one?
No. All right, so these are the types of things we've all heard in the newspaper of what kind of cybersecurity issues happen. We've got ransomware, which encrypts the target's computer files, making it inaccessible to the user, and then they demand money. We're seeing townships, cities, states, companies, and businesses getting hit for $15 to $2 million just to be able to access their computers. Next slide, please. When you look at the WannaCry ransomware, that is the one that has been used the most, and it's through the Microsoft Windows process. It basically encrypts the victim's file, and then it threats to delete the file. And they do delete files when they don't end up getting the monies that they've required. Next one, please. Then we've got leakware, which is extortion. It's really originally dubbed a non-zero-sum game. The malware does not deny the victim access to the system, but it instead inquires the access to the victim's information and threatens to publish that information. For those of you who may remember, there was a website. Now I had it in the back of my mind. A dating site called Madison something and something. I can't think of the name now, but it was an adult dating site for men and women that were married that wanted to cheat. And they had this entire list of all the men and women that have signed up for this a process, and then in fact did publish that data, and it affected many other individuals. We have social engineering, cyberware issues that convince the user to disclose sensitive information, like, hey, I'm your friend, acting like a friend, please send me this, or I'm a bank and you need to make your payment here, in all of those types of activities. Next one, please. Spoofing is the masquerades as a valid entity through falsification of data to gain access. Next one. And the risk really created here for businesses is a result of that. The more we move towards the digital processes, computers, just about everything. Imagine if your phones were shut down by a solar flare and your computers were shut down and all the systems in this country were shut down, there would be very little operating processes that go on. Grocery stores wouldn't operate. Other businesses wouldn't operate. We would have issues with regard to infrastructure, water, gas, electric, etc. But for the business perspective, the greatest risk is the financial loss, the interruption of business. There are companies, and I'm talking national companies, that have been unable to operate for 3 to 5 days in terms of transferring business and that. Informational loss and corruption, recreating and fixing the material and the projects and the information you have is expensive. First party and third party liability. And here's your problem. If you're a company and you get hacked, not only do they steal your employees' stuff, they'll steal the vendor's material that you have, and they'll steal also your banking information. Your vendor, once they get hacked because of the ability to get in through your system, now has a claim against you. And your employees now have a claim against the company because their information's been hacked. And the bank has been hacked because they are acting like you in the sense that the company's money and accounts and that have all been done. It is a life-ending consequence for a business when this happens. And that's why many of you have seen, and if you haven't, you will be seeing contracts between vendors and other engagements. If you look at the fine print, there is a reference there to cyber attacks and having insurance and having other things. And then we've got federal and state compliance penalties and reputational loss. There's a couple cases we've all heard about. Some of the big box stores have been hit pretty hard. Some of the big autos companies have been hit hard, and the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been paid to fix that. And one of the most scary points about cyber crime is this. The belief by Homeland Security is that all of this material that has been stolen over the last 10 or 15 years from individuals to businesses are being used on a kind of a scale. The easy fruit, the big companies where the most money is at, are the ones that we've seen for the most part being attacked. There are occasions where people's identities have been stolen for many different things. But as those big box stores or big entities where the money is there start to be used and fixed and they can't get into that material, that's when the criminals are going to start getting into further deeper into the information they have on individuals. The idea is if you haven't had your identity stolen or your bank account attacked or your credit card used or your mortgage or house quick claimed, they suspect that over 45% of people across the world will have had that happen to them by 2072. Where they got that number, I don't know, but Homeland Security believes that that's where they're going to run out of the big box, the big ticket numbered individuals and be able to go into the smaller ones. Next one, please. Breach involves electronic health information. This, of course, deals with HIPAA breaches, Federal Trade Commission. HIPAA does not affect much of who is on this call. I know we don't have hospitals and other type of facilities here, but again, the health information, the disclosure of information does get out there into the public, and it can impact applications and jobs and other things. And then breach involving other information that can occur and will occur in the future. If we could go to slide 19 for a moment. All right, so with the, I think this is 23, but that's okay. If we go to this slide and go to the next, you'll see when you go to this PowerPoint later on, just keep going through these slides, if you would. Next one. These are the notifications that the HIPAA you have to give, the Federal Trade Commission you have to give to vendors and to others. Keep going. And it's required by law that you basically, once something is done, if the breach is more, stop here. If the breach is more than for 500 individuals, these are the rules that you have to follow. If the breach is greater than 500 individuals, these are the rules you have to go. And as you see on your slide right now, the Federal Trade Commission has a form that has to be filed and with the Homeland Commission and the Federal Trade Commission on breach of HIPAA information. If we go to the next slide, please. Next one. And this is a Form FTC model letter that is normally sent out and is required by law. And it's basically notice of data breach. This goes to a customer where you explain who it is, how it happened, what information was involved, what we're doing, what you can do, and list out all of the different aspects of it and any other important information. And this letter, along with the filing with the state governments and federal governments, are required to be sent out and verified so that people can take action to protect their credit. You look at the second column where it says, call any one of the three major credit bureaus. As soon as one credit bureau confirms your fraud alert, the others are notified to place fraud alerts. The initial fraud alert stays on your credit report for 90 days. And it goes through it and basically is designed to help your employees, your vendors, and others to take action to protect themselves. So you've got this cybersecurity problem. You recognize it because you have systems in place. You have liability to vendors, to customers, to banks, and to your employees. And when you act in an appropriate manner through these filings with state and federal and using the letters that have to go out so customers can also, or employees can take action to protect themselves, what you're doing is mitigating your damages as best you can. The best mitigation is to have a system that beats the system coming into you. But in this regard, once that has occurred, you then have to act appropriately. And if you do, you mitigate the damages. And it can be quite substantial. It's a difference between in one major entity having to pay out over $120 million. And because they mitigated it, they were able to control it to about $25 million. Some of this is covered by insurance, and I think Gerald will talk a little bit about that in a moment. So we've got cyber breaches and the actions that you need to take. We've got once it happens, then you have to act in a very fast and effective manner, getting letters out to everyone, announcing it to everyone. You cannot ever treat this as, oh, it will just go away, that it's not that deep. And it's not that important. It may turn out that you've sent letters to many people that you didn't need to do so because it wasn't as deep as you had initially thought or as the IT people thought. But better to be over sending out letters than to be under reporting and under sending, where the damages again can become business ending in that regard. Next slide, please. Protections pre-breach. Establish and enforce policies and procedures for safeguard data. You need to have in your handbook and in your policies and procedures cybersecurity policies. What is IT doing? What are the employees doing? What training are you doing every 3 months or 6 months to alert the employees of what not to click on, what to click on? What kind of systems are you having in place that are looking at your systems to make sure that they're not being breached? And how often are you looking at your systems to ensure that you don't have internal or external breaches? Establish a comprehensive data loss protection plan. Now, Gerald will talk briefly about this, but many of the insurance providers that provide cybersecurity have a plan of action, not unlike what we've talked about before. As soon as you alert them that you have something, they come in with lawyers and professionals that will get the letters out, will get the proper IT people hired, will get the proper notifications out, and will essentially take your needs and ensure that everything is being done properly. That still doesn't mean you don't have established policies and procedures for your employees in business, but insurance is another way where they provide these types of process. Employee training and support, can't tell you how important it is. Periodic risk assessment every 3 months is my preferred request, and that's by having an IT person outside come in and just do a risk assessment. Retain a third-party corporate breach and data security expert to analyze that. Keep current with security software and updates and patches. I don't know about you, but in my law firm, every time my iPhone update of 7.5 and 8.2 or whatever it is comes online, one of the things that I'm to do is I don't get access to my system until I've updated my phone's background. Hold vendors and partners to the same standards. Our agreements with our vendors, where we're buying product or we're selling product, needs to ensure that our vendors have robust cybersecurity systems in place so that they don't get breached and our material is stolen. And if they don't have it, and if they don't understand it, then that's something that you need to evaluate whether they're a vendor you wish to continue with. And if it is, then you go to your IT person and your IT group and say, what can we do to put walls up against a vendor that we need is not investing in cybersecurity, can pose a huge financial risk on us. And as a result, what can we input in our system? Next one, please. Secure company operations, assemble a team of experts to conduct breach response. This would be done normally in concerts with any insurance that you go out and purchase. But if you don't go out and purchase this, you need to assemble a team of experts, even if they're third party that are not part of your team, but at a moment's call, they come in and do this. Remove improperly posted information from the web. Interview people who discovered the breach and document the investigation. Immediately understand what the vulnerabilities are so you can assess, check, analyze, and fix. And then notice the appropriate parties. Law enforcement should be probably, if not the first, but the second call that you're making that this has happened. Most large cities have their own task force with regard to cyber crimes, and they have some very sophisticated tools, people, and services that they would work with you on. Next one, please. Now, this is where Gerald's going to talk a little bit more than I am, but I'm just going to leave this as my final slide that I want to talk about. There are called first-party coverage and third-party coverage. And again, first-party coverage is you, right? Your company. You want to fix the loss of the digital information you have. You want to reduce business interruption. You want to have security events, threats, and terrorism reduced so that your business operates. And then, of course, the third-party coverage deals with the liability that you have out there. And then one more slide, please. Two data examples, and I'll just use this one, by the way, and that is Under Armour, MyFitnessPal mobile application. What had happened in February of 2018, they got over 150 million users of that app. 4 days later, again, 4 days later, Under Armour began notifying users. Under Armour admitted that it only hashed some of the passwords using the robust function called BioCrypt. The rest were protected by a weaker hashing scheme, which had known flaws. This means that the attacker likely cracked some portions of the stolen passwords. So in Under Armour's situation, they not only got attacked on the robustness of their security program and the systems that they had, they got beaten up because of the delay that it took for them to make the notification. So you not only have to have a cyber system and policy, but you have to have robust security systems in place that are updated to the top level to protect the information. And one last slide, please. And then Gerald, it will be you. And Blue Cross Blue Shield, you can read this for yourself, got nailed pretty hard. And not only for the breach of information of dates of birth, diagnostic codes, details, information for processing, there was financial credit cards that were taken, social securities were taken, and this data was used, and it was almost $1 billion worth of expense and cost that was necessary to try to stop the bleeding. With that said, Gerald?
Yeah, I'm afraid to open my doors for business anymore after listening to you two guys talk. It's scary stuff out there. We really do live in the wild, wild west. So I want to talk to you just briefly about the do's and don'ts of cyber insurance, and forgive my okay, let's go to the next slide. Let's roll with that. I want to try and keep this brief and just talk a little bit about the differences between add-on cyber and a standalone cyber policy. Add-on cyber policies, almost anybody can get that. And what happens with those policies is they get slapped onto a commercial package policy. They generally offer very low limits, as you can see from the example on the screen, and they generally offer very limited coverage. As we go through the slide, you'll see some of the coverages that they do not make available. So let's just roll to the next screen, Jen. So your standalone cyber policies is what we are always recommending to our clients. Although having one that's added to your general liability policy and your commercial property policy, the old adage, something is better than nothing, certainly rings true. But I definitely would pick up a cyber policy through a specialty insurer, and they're always standalone policies. They very much protect you a lot better than a standalone in almost every case. These are a couple things that you end up getting when you're dealing with a insurer that specializes in cyber insurance. Their policies include reputational harm. They include computer fraud. They include funds transfer fraud. They also include social engineering. And then a big piece of this is media liability. So I want to go through some of these on the screen right now. I want to focus on computer fraud, funds transfer fraud, and social engineering fraud. But definitely, as one of your dues, do buy all three of these. They're so closely linked, sometimes it's hard to untangle them, but I'll give you a quick definition of each one of these. Jen, if you can roll to the next screen, I do have the definitions up on the screen, but I'll make it brief for you. Computer fraud is an unauthorized third person who is not an employee who uses a computer or a network to fraudulently transfer money, securities, and other property outside of the premises. So this is a third person who's manipulating your systems to transfer valuable information, property, securities outside of the premises. Funds transfer fraud differs in that these are fraudulent instructions coming from a third party, again, not an employee, to direct a financial institution to transfer money, securities, or other property outside of the premises using a computer. And one example there is phone transfer. Social engineering is the big one that we see, and that's more the scary one in my book, because I've had plenty of clients get hit with these type of claims. Some insurers give this a little different title, but it's basically an unauthorized third party other than an employee. Again, we're always dealing with other than an employee who impersonates a vendor that you do business with and causes the owner or an employee of the company to transfer money, property, or securities outside of the premises. So let me give you an example. A hacker is monitoring your email traffic in and out. They intercept a transaction where you're going to be wiring some money. They end up hitting you with fraudulent wiring instructions, and it's amazing how real these wiring instructions look. So they intercept your email traffic, they create fraudulent wiring instruction with their bank account on there, and then you respond to it. I believe there was a religious institution up in the Cleveland area got hit for $1.8 million. Somebody wasn't happy there. Let me give you a couple of tips on this. Call verification is super important in helping make sure that you can prevent this. Please don't call the number on the wiring instructions that you get, because even the number would be fraudulent. So I'll just give you a quick story. I go to my bank on a new home purchase. I said to the lady at the bank, I need to wire transfer money. Here's the wiring instructions. I need you to call verify. She grabs my email, my letter that I got through the email, and she starts calling the number. I said, what are you doing? She goes, well, I'm calling the number. I go, wait a minute. I grabbed my cell phone. I looked up the phone number in public records. I called the bank or the title company that the money was being transferred to, and I confirmed everything. You know, I'm going to give you an account number. Tell me whose name this is on the account number. You know, are they expecting this transfer? So call verification is extremely important, but I would recommend if you do any wire transfers, have all of this information documented in advance. Who are your vendors? What's the business name? Who are the authorized person? Do you have a form of ID that you can verify with them when you call in? For example, their driver's license number. When wiring instructions are received, call that predetermined phone number, speak with a person you've already identified as the authorized contact, confirm their identity with the previously documented identity form, and everything will go well then. These are critical steps. Matter of fact, if you do that, I do have a call verification form that I use that I do make available to my clients. So the do not there is do not buy funds transfer fraud, computer fraud, and social engineering without the other. Keep them all together. One of the other things that is made available on a standalone cyber policy that you will not get on one of those add-on coverages is used to be called publisher's liability. It's now called media liability. So think about it. These days, we don't largely generate print materials. We use pixels. Those are the elements of a digital world to create words, documents, the things we see on the internet. Nearly everything we do is internet based. This is that media liability that protects us in case we're accused, either wrongly or rightly, of libel, slander, emotional distress, defamation, or copyright infringement of someone else. So very important that you make sure your cyber policy includes media liability coverage. So what I want you to be aware of as you're thinking about transitioning maybe from one insurer to another, these insurers, almost all of them will generate a penetration test, but these tests have their limitations. They only poke at the outside of your system, trying to see where your vulnerabilities are, where they can crack into your system. You know, I'm very proud. We had a penetration test done on ours. It was a 99%. No one gets 100%, but a penetration test is only from the outside in. Criminals are creative. They hack even into the best designed security plans. So that's why no one scores 100% on the penetration test. Response services is something that a good insurance policy will provide for you. So let me give you an example. A client of mine calls me Monday morning. He's in an all-out panic. The first words are, Gerald, the FBI's in my office. We've been hacked. My data's locked up. They're threatening to release my data to the internet unless I pay them in Bitcoin. He says the FBI is recommending that I call a negotiating firm. They're 25 grand just to walk through the door. So I had to talk him down, get him to walk off the ledge. We engaged negotiating services. We were able to settle the entire matter, pay the ransomware, and we were able to get it done for 20, just a little over 20 grand. So here's my next do not. This is a hard one. Do not panic. If you have cyber insurance in place, you have resources available. Tap into them. They give you response services at the time. They give you penetration tests as you're applying. Some insurers will even monitor your systems for the duration of coverage for them. And they also give you post-breach remediation expenses. So pay attention to those. Take a look at your coverage. Make sure you've got all those. Post-breach remediation expenses is coverage to help you figure out where your holes were, figure out how to patch them up. They want you to patch it up. They don't want to see another claim going on. And probably the other biggest element is the human element, and the one that requires the most interaction. Look, people make mistakes. We all get in a hurry. I've had it happen to me. Email hits my inbox from one of my employees letting me know that, hey, we changed banking accounts. I quickly fire off an email with the new ACH form so we can make the direct deposit. Not a real good move. Luckily, this one was my brother, and I copied him on that email. And he's like, wait, what? Stop. I'm like, okay, it worked. Don't panic. So, you know, my best advice is if you get an email from an employee telling you they've changed banking accounts, put that email aside, create a brand new email to that employee, attach the form, and use the email address that you know is valid, that you have on file, that Outlook's pulling from its pre-fill or autofill system, and then send it to them. But simply to reply, it'll go right back to the person who sent it to you, which is a fraudulent email address to start with. So we're running out of time. That's a lot of information overall, but I want you to remember a couple of things. Best advice I can give you is twofold. First, insurance is available. But again, it should only be your last line of defense. Your first line of defense is a good tech firm like Excelis Group. Excellus can run tests for you, both penetration tests from outside and tests from the inside of your system. They can also work with your employees to determine who is likely to fall prey to phishing scams. They can deal with that human element. So my do here is do call them, engage with them. They'll help you avoid costly mistakes. Second, good legal advice is invaluable. My do here is call Greg Main, partner with GRSM. This law firm is in a class of their own. Best part of this, listen up, very important. As an added benefit to clients of McMichael Insurance, we make the services of attorney Greg Main available to our clients at no cost. We've totally underwritten the cost of Greg's services. Feel free to tap into those at any time. So we are out of time. With that said, I'll let Jen take it from here and wrap up the call.
Yes, thank you, Gerald. We do have one question that came through from Rob. It came through while Greg was speaking, and so I know we are out of time, so if anybody needs to hop off, that's okay, but I don't want to let the time go without answering this question. So Rob asked a question, what is the best way, or can you recommend a way to go about setting up customers who are paying bills online and still be able to protect their information? The second part of this is also, when charging a credit card processing fee, do we set ourselves up for possible litigation? So Greg or Joe or Gerald, I don't know if any of you have any insight into that.
Yeah, I'll give you a brief response and then I'll let Joe get on, and then I have to jump to a court hearing. The issue is you have a conversation with your IT person, the bank that is processing the obligations and the financial obligations, whether it's yours and or theirs, and you all four, the customer's bank, your bank, and you and the customer determine what it is and what systems you have that are designed for the security of the information. There are thousands of cases out there where it happens daily where someone spoofs that they are the bank or they are the CEO and say, send me this credit card or send me this money or send me this information. And people do it all the time because it looked just like them. So you have that discussion when you're dealing with a vendor. And you sit down and you go over, what are you doing? What can we do? What's your bank doing? What can we do? What is our bank doing? How do we ensure? And it makes a team approach.
I would only add, I think there's a couple different scenarios here. I think the question, if I heard you correctly, is about how do I allow this individual's customers to pay their fees, their charges. I would strongly encourage you to leverage a third-party cloud solution that should, assuming they are an industrial strength, normal, national, whatever type organization, they're going to have all the protections, all the security, and you are not responsible for any of the information that's being maintained. So you can do a pass-through if you want to put like a portal on your site. It can be like they're paying your site, paying you directly, but ultimately there's a company that's handling that transaction on your behalf, and you will excuse yourself from a lot of responsibility and potential risk. You don't want to maintain any financial records for your clients if you can avoid it at all, just because there is, if you've got that on any device anywhere, it can be exposed. What was the second half of the question, Jen? I apologize.
Well, I think your answer does answer the second half. The second half is, if we're charging credit card processing fees, do we set ourselves up for possible litigation? But I think your answer
My
is, if we're,
experience, I'm not a lawyer. I would say that I'm not a lawyer at all. So this is not legal advice. I've been advised that there are handling fees. There are fees that can be charged associated with a transaction that are perfectly legal. They get feisty with credit card transaction fees, but you are able to charge fees for whatever you want as part of that transaction when it occurs. That's my understanding, but I would confirm with your credit card handling company.
Perfect. All right. I
All
think
I got.
we are good. Thank you, everybody, so much for attending. Joe, Greg, Gerald, thank you so much for the knowledge that you bring to us today. I know I got a lot out of it, and I'm sure everybody else did too. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.